Welcome back to Brashenomics. I'm Ben Brashen, and David Bell is back with us, our RE/MAX Hall of Fame realtor that comes by, during his extra time.
You really like saying that, don't you?
I do.
Yeah.
I don't know any other Hall of Famers. But now we know you. Anyways, that's, David, so to get the designations you have to work with a lot of people. You've probably seen a lot of people come close to making a lot of mistakes. And at the very beginning, Heather actually mentioned this element of time that goes into, especially in a market that we have right now, when you have people buyers are starting to maybe get burned out from looking at so many houses. What does that element of time start to look like when people get maybe super emotional or really excited about, the prospect of buying or selling a house?
Well, Ben, the time today in this market, the pressure, the so-called pressure on buyers today is nothing like it was prior to 2008. From 2004 to 2008, there'd be one house come up, there'd be 10 offers on it, you'd have 2 hours to make up your mind. You had 2 hours to make up your mind if you're going to buy it without an inspection, try to get a pre-inspection, and how many tens of thousands of dollars were you willing to escalate over the purchase price. Today, the market is improved, obviously, from where it was, but it's not a huge time issue. But that being said, what Heather said is a really legitimate thing, and all I can answer is what I do. And what I do is when I sit down with my clients, I have a pre-meeting with them to make sure everything's going to mesh so we can work together. And I discuss the time issue with them, that they have to have the patience. They have to have, if they're in a situation where they have to move in 30 days because they need to be out, then they probably need to arrange for some short-term rental someplace else. That doesn't happen all that often. When people get under pressure to make a decision, people that would ordinarily make a good decision will oftentimes make a bad decision. And buying a house, buying a condo, buying a boat, buying an airplane, buying stuff like this also becomes a really emotional.
I get emotional when I buy my airplanes, David. I mean, man.
But when when you make a major purchase,
sure.
That's what I'm getting.
I get it. I get it.
It gets really emotional. And there's a line that I tell people is that you're going to buy with your heart, but I want to make sure that you have 1 foot firmly planted in reality. So it's leadership. And Heather mentioned that as well. It's leadership. And I'm the leader with my client. And I don't sell them anything, but I lead them to make good decisions. And sometimes it takes a month, sometimes it takes 6 months.
Because I love football analogies, it kind of is that quarterback or that leader in clock management. Sometimes you just have to take a timeout.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you just have to step back and go, okay, what are our next few plays? And you can't just go, because that might not be the most effective way to accomplish the goal, to get in the end zone.
Yeah, you hit that right on the head. That's a great analogy. And that's really true. To go out and look at 5 houses and buy the best out of those 5 houses, or buy the best one out of those 5 houses, if it's the right house for you, great. If it's not the right house for you, you got to keep looking, but you got to have patience. And like I said earlier, because it is such an emotional thing for so many people to buy a house, that you have to coach them through that. You really have to talk them down sometimes and they get fearful. Like, if I don't buy this, then I won't get something. You have to say, yes, you will. And the interesting thing is, I tell people, if we don't get this one or we don't get that one, a better one comes along. And you know what? In 23 years of doing this, every single time a better one comes along, and that they're really happy about it.
And then you talk about the short-term piece of that, right? Or if somebody has to go get short-term housing.
Mm-hmm.
And my guess is a lot of people don't want to because of the stress of moving and doing that twice. But the stress of moving potentially twice or putting yourself in storage for a few months, I mean, that's got to be less valuable than finding the right house. I mean, you'd rather find the right house and go through a little bit of stress.
Well, or are you going to spend $500,000 on a house that's not worth $500,000, and instead of costing you $4,000 or $5,000 to get short-term, storage and stuff like that, it's going to cost you $20,000 in a loss on the house.
And now you don't even have the house that you might not have.
That's right.
Your goals as well as you would have hoped.
That's right. So people should try to get themselves into a situation where they don't have that time pressure on them. And when, I work with a lot of people from out of state that have been transferred here. And if they're transferred here with a major company, most major companies do have short-term corporate housing. And if they don't, there's a place on Queen Anne that does, and they can just move in there. It's not all that expensive. It's a lot less money than it is making a bad decision on a house.
And when you think about the relocation piece, if people haven't been in this city for very long, I mean, that's another big part too.
It's huge.
Or even if you have been in the city a long time, but maybe you're just exploring a new place to live, there's a lot to think about.
One of our shows way back, we talked about we talked about that, and I was actually going through some of the shows the other day, and people look on the internet and they think they understand the city. They think they understand neighborhoods, and they come here from Oklahoma or from Michigan or wherever they come here from, and they give you their opinion. Well, I don't want to live on Queen Anne, or I don't want to live in Kirkland, or I don't want to live here or there. And when you actually start showing them the neighborhoods and showing them stuff, they go, oh my goodness, that's really where I want to live. So the information they get oftentimes is so incorrect, because you can't figure out what a neighborhood is based on a computer screen.
Well, and I love there's always like the walkability score.
Yeah.
Which, I tend to think where I live is pretty walkable, but the score isn't perfect.
What is the score, Ben?
I think our walkability score is like a 67, but you could definitely walk anywhere you needed to go. Oh man! My point is, I agree with you,
You were
David.
on vacation, weren't you?
I agree with you that you can't get everything from a computer.
So yeah, you can't. So again, going back to what Heather said is leadership. So when you guys out there, if you want to buy a house and you want to make a good decision on buying a house, if you don't want to call me, make sure you get a hold of an agent that really knows what they're doing, and they're going to tell you the truth. They're going to give you sound advice. They're going to walk you through the whole process, and make sure that you're not falling off a cliff. That's the best advice I think anybody can give.
We're here with David Bell with Seattle's bestrealestate.com. And David, your insight, it does come from a lot of experience. And I think that's so important, especially because, you talk about patience. A new real estate agent maybe doesn't have the capability to keep somebody calm. Because if they don't have the deals or whatnot, they can tend to we've seen it. They just squeeze the deal and they want it and they want it and they want it. And so it's sometimes harder for a newer agent to really keep, tabs on what's going on and what's going to be best for the client, because they really want to sell a house.
Yeah. And that's you like sports analogies. So do I. And it's like a baseball player that goes up to the major leagues for the first time, and he gets up to the plate and he's squeezing the bat so hard, he's choking the life out of it, and he can't swing the ball. He can't swing at the ball. So you have to, you have to be relaxed. And in order to do that, you've got to have a lot of experience to draw from, because everybody comes from a little bit different position. Everybody comes from a different background. And you have to kind of sit back, you have to look at them, you have to listen to them, and you have to figure out what their background is, what their ideas are about the home buying process. And then you have to guide them. You have to guide them through that. And you really, I think you're so right. Most of the time, you've got to slow them down. But when the market's going, what if I don't buy this house today? It's going to be gone, and then we won't have a house to live in. You know what? That's really not going to be the case. There's always going to be a good house, and it will be a better house.
Yeah. So how do you tell people that?
Just that.
Just that.
Yeah. But I start out from the very, very beginning, the first time we sit down, and I say, this is kind of the scenario that we're going to look at. And, I start off from, we're going to go out. You're going to tell me the kind of houses that you think you want. Then we're going to go out and we're going to look at all kinds of houses, and then you're going to get an idea of maybe that what you thought you want isn't what it is that you really do want. And then we're going to refine that down and refine that down.
It's a little like dating.
Oh, God.
You just don't go marry, the first girl you date, typically.
You don't?
I didn't.
Oh. Huh.
I waited for a better one and a better one and a better one, and then I got the best one.
So it's like anything in life. You just got to have patience. You let the game come to you, to use your sports analogy. You can't force the game. It doesn't happen. You can't force stuff. It will not happen. You push it away. It's
funny. I mean, it's the same in so many different sports, too. The harder you swing at a golf ball, the harder you swing at a baseball bat.
Yeah.
Or baseball. They all tend to not help. And
they do the work. They do the opposite. You get the opposite result. Yeah.
It seems it's maybe similar in buying a house. Yeah. You got to wait and just be patient because so many houses are so different.
Yeah. So here's an idea. If you want a real estate agent, you got to make sure they have a good, solid sports background.
There you go.
And David does.
David does. Drafted by the Yankees.
Okay, that's all right.
David, also not only our RE/MAX Hall of Famer, but also, I think you're probably the only guy who comes on our show that was ever drafted in Major League Baseball.
I thought you were going to talk about my singing prowess. But that's
you are also phenomenal.
The man of many talents.
You are, David, in so many ways. Hey, thanks so much for joining us. We do have to go to break. Again, David Bell with RE/MAX and our resident RE/MAX Hall of Famer. When we come back, Scott Cannon's going to join us for the first time. You're listening to Brashenomics.